This is the Tin Car Ambassador, and as I've said in my blog, I'm not a one-fly fisherman yet, but if I were, the fly I would choose would be the black deerhair beetle. Probably the most effective fly that I've found thus far. I call it the weapon of mass destruction. A simple fly to tie. The only things you need to tie this fly are some black thread. I use number 6 uni thread. Some dyed black deer hair, preferably with long fibers. And some kind of light colored hackle feather to create a tail. I always tie this in size 14, although I'm sure you could tie it in other sizes, but size 14 seems to work so well that I've never been tempted to tie it in another size. Let's go ahead and tie one now. Now the first thing I'm going to do is just layer the hook with thread. All the way to the back of the hook. Now one thing I do this may be different than others is I always tie this hackle tail in, because what I imagine is that this is the wings of the fly you see exposed when the beetle opens its shell back, and I don't know if it really helps make this fly more attractive to trout, or if perhaps they take it for something other than a beetle, but to my way of thinking it seems to help. So we got just a little tail there. Now from your deer hair, cut a bunch of hair about the size of a number 2 pencil. This fly is probably better to go a little larger than smaller. You don't have to stack the fibers, but just cut them straight, even with the scissors, and tie it in at the back of the hook. Take a couple of wraps, kind of tight, then pull the bunch of deer hair back towards the rear of the hook, and then complete your wraps through the deer hair. Get it out of the way. Holding onto your bunch of deer hair, clip the fibers that have flared. All the way around the hook, trying not to cut your thread. Then return your thread to the rear of the hook and bind down the fibers a little more. Then take a peacock hackle, tie it on. That'll become your underbody. As we all know, fish can't resist peacock. And just wrap the underbody kind of tightly with the peacock. And tie off your peacock. Now gather up all your fibers in kind of a tight bundle and pull them forward. And take a couple of wraps around to bind them together. Then I usually switch hands, and now I start doing a couple of harder wraps. And then gather all your fibers that have flared, and underneath I usually take 4 wraps of thread. And then I'll do 4 whip finishes. Cut my thread, gather all the fibers up, and cut them off kind of like you would the head on a elk hair caddis. Now with the tip of your scissors, tease out just a couple of fibers from the rear of the fly and cut them. That's going to become some legs on the fly. Now this one I could have probably gone a little bit with a little bit more deer hair, but that's basically the way it looks. If you put some fly floating on this, it'll float all day like a cork. Obviously it's a dry fly. Cast it as close to a feeding fish or as close to the bank as you can, or to a rock or root wide, any obstruction. And if the fish are looking up at all, taking anything off the surface, they're likely to take this, and sometimes when they're not taking things off the surface, they'll surprise you and come rocketing up from the bottom of the stream to take this. Good luck with the fly.